Hello friends, welcome back to Data Center Guru Knowledge Platform, knowing A to Z of data center. I hope you have been enjoying my sessions and it has been really interesting and fruitful. I would really appreciate if you can share your feedback for improvements so that I can be able to make improvements continuously on the sessions, which would be much fruitful and interesting for you. So today we are going to talk about evolution and types of data center. That means how the computer technology has evolved from the beginning and what stage we are, and how organizations have adapted the technology and at what stage they are today. And secondly, what has been the role of data center across this technology evolution and in which direction which we are moving. So on the terms of data center evolution, so first is the technology evolution, and what we learned that way back in 1946 the first computer was invented and started in the name of ENIAC, that is electronic numerical integrator and computer. So this machine used to do some kind of arithmetic calculation like addition, subtractions of substantial data and the numbers, which is followed by a machine called UNIVAC machine. In that machine, it is a large machine where we started processing of data and the storing of data which happened in UNIVAC machine. And subsequently, we found in 1971 the first Intel chip of 4004 was launched, and it was a processor. And subsequently, in 1980, the first personal computer was launched by IBM PC. And in 1990, IBM came out with the mainframe for where the critical business applications were processed and stored in that machine. This used to be a very, very big machine. And during that time, the entire processing and the storage was done centrally, and there were multiple dumb terminal, we'll call it, just a monitor and the keyboard to people enter the data and get it processed through the mainframe. So it was launched in 1990, and then in 1995, during mid of 90s, we found server client topology came into the picture, where server used to process and store for specifically key applications. However, the client, which used to be a personal computer, was acting as a um, local processor as well as a kind of dumb terminal. So it was not 100% dumb, which we used to have with the mainframe. But during this server client topology, uh, some of the processing were used to happen in the server, and the part of processing were also used to happen in the client, which is a personal computer or PC or laptop. Then in 2005, we heard about cloud, and because what happened is during after mid of 90s and before 2005, we found lot of organizations went into business process automation. So they started using technology to help them driving the efficiency in the normal business processes. So, like if you remember during those time, Most of the warehouses were getting connected through WAN connectivity, through VSATs, and even in the factory, the material entry, material exit, invoicing, most of the business process started automating, and all these processes, even including the invoice cutting and all, was being processed through the computer. So after 2005, we witnessed something in the name of cloud. We had a couple of events I attended in 2009, 10 also, but at the time there was a lot of talk about the cloud, but the real thing on the ground was not there that much. And after typically 2009, 10, and the cloud adaptation has become more and more as a technology. And now, if you talk about more and more organizations, if you look at, they are following hybrid IT. So, hybrid, what is this hybrid IT is all about? It is a combination of different kind of technology or topology or the services what they have been using to deliver the business services through the technology to the customer. So they may have some services on the cloud, some services on co-location, some services on their own data center, some services provided outsourcing as a managed IT services, and so on and so forth. So this is we call hybrid IT platform, which combines with on-premise, private cloud, public cloud. So once we move ahead on the subsequent sessions, maybe you'll have more clarity about what is this hybrid cloud and all. So broadly, that's what I should be able to explain, which would be easier for anybody to understand. Second, how the data center has evolved. So obviously, as I told you in the beginning, so technological equipments require a conducive environment to work continuously, and that's how the data center facility started evolving with the technology what came in. So if you see in way back in 1990, so most of or all the servers were not rack mounted servers. It was more to be a tower kind of, like we have seen a machine, personal computer where you have got tower and then monitor separately. The similar way, most of the servers were of that size, and people used to put it on the table or some kind of iron rack arrangement in a room to take care of it. In that room, people used to sit also, and these servers were also working to support their business requirement. But with this, it moves further in 1995 when people started putting all their servers or the technological equipment in a rack, and they identified that area, they call it as a server room. So I would say in 1990 there was no dedicated room for servers. It was occupying the shared space in the office area. However, in 1995 people started dedicating some space for server. They call it server room, and they used to provide some special kind of air conditioning environment to take care of it, and also the power connectivity to survive. So typically, if you talk about data center, so data center concept came in around 2000, which talks about the holistic thing. It is not only server room, but what other support equipments which is supporting the server room, maintaining the environment and conditions was the key, and that's how the actual data center was being built during 2000. So it is a data center floor or data center building, and because the size of the data center started increasing, because the dependency of business on the technology has started increasing. So that has boosted the data center requirement, and that's how the specifically data center started being built for 30, 40 kilo IT load, 50 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt IT load, 500 kilowatt IT load, and so forth. And during the time itself, between 2000 2005, this co-location, that is data service, edge service, also started coming in, because a lot of organizations invested in India in building the data center, and they started providing a separate dedicated space for the specific organization to provide that conducive environment for the data center, and they used to put their services, and that's how the co-location services started. So normally in co-location there was difference in design in co-location and the private or enterprise or captive data center, where in co-location environment is multiple organizations hosted their servers, so they used to be caged around. So X organization will have this area which is caged and access control where that organization's authorized people can only enter, and there is no cross thoroughfare of different people in different areas. However, for captive data center, it was dedicated for that enterprise or the organization. So it was not such kind of designs were not there. After 2013, we realized and we saw the hyperscaler coming to the picture, like big internet giants like Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft. Those people started large data center. So when, because at the time the adaptability of their applications or their user base has increased drastically, multiple fold, and they has to have a much bigger infrastructure for data center to support such kind of requirements. So, what those internet giants did, instead of just following the normal topology, they started reinventing the wheel to find how they can be able to get a speed, efficiency, and scalability of their data center on the same part. So typically they talked about how they can scale on a fast way, how their data center can be efficient, and how they are able to manage overall the supply chain and to reduce the overall cost of ownership. And because the size of such kind of data center infrastructure started big and big, so during that time itself, the Open Compute platform was launched, and then Open Compute 19 was also launched by LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. So these people could able to reinvent the wheel and get that economy of scale and efficiency with those designs, and that's what we call hyperscale data center, which is larger in size, because before even 2013 or even the maximum size of the data center in our part of the world used to be 500 kilowatt, 1 megawatt, or even 5 megawatt would have been a very, very big data center. When hyperscaler demand came into the picture, so on the size and capacity of the data center is becoming very high, 10, 20, 30, 80, 100, 200 kind of megawatt kind of data centers are being built. And with this hyperscale demand and digitization, which happen in different countries, in India also we have a digital initiatives, is a part of which it drives the scope of digital infrastructure, digitizing all the informations. And now we are talking about data center parks. So one campus, you are building a data center, but expansion becoming a limit at certain point of time. So data center parks is a huge land mass where a scalability is not a limit. So you can scale up to 500 megawatt, even 1000 megawatt capacity in that area. And normally, whoever hosts their hardware in a specific data center, they would like to have they want to grow or scale up in that data center itself in the same location, so that scaling up doesn't become a challenge. That's how the demand for data center parks has increased drastically. Now, coming back to how the business technology adoption or evolution happened, and if you see before 2005, so technology is being seen as a support function. It was supporting the business in some way or the other. So that's the reason the dependency of business on the technology was not on that level. And this has evolved when we moved around in 2012. At the time, the technology became enabler. So it started driving the data center, the business of any organization. The technology started, and then in 2000 till 2019, it was driver of the business. So most of the CIOs getting linked directly with the CEOs, and a lot of CEOs also the technical people. So because technology was really driving the business of the organization. And in 2020, after this COVID, which has happened, it has become lifeline of the business. Lot of organization has got perished when they did not use the technology correctly. And now I don't think any organization can think of a business without technology. So technology has become lifeline, and even technology has become a business in itself. So that's how we talk B2B businesses and so many startups spending in this area of only creating a technology platform and providing services to the customers. So this is how the overall the dependency of organization on the technology, and at stage where we are today, it is lifeline, and we can't think any business prospering or going without uses or adaptation of technology. So coming back to types of data center. So how do you define the type? So there are different ways or the parameter based on which you define the type of data center. And the first thing is I would like to say there is no thumb rule for just selecting what kind of data center you need. So for that, the basic requirement is you must have to weigh what is your business exposure versus investment what you are making on the technology to ensure the balance of it. So if you are investing less, you are carrying more exposure. Similarly, if you are investing more and covering up more exposure, so then you may be over investing. So the best way is to see the balance between exposure and exposure and investment to see and select the right type of data center. So the type of the data centers are dependent of these things what you see application. So what is the application of the data center? That means whether the data center is being used for telco purpose or used for multi-tenancy purpose or the service purpose, used for banking, used for smaller size or used for a lab. So the different kind of data center based on what application it is providing. Second, based on the usage. So there are a lot of data center which talks about what is the usage of the data center. So as I said, investment versus exposure. What is the level of reliability what you are looking at for data center? So based on that, you have to select your business what they need, and accordingly you have to select the reliability level. Usage I was talking about, let us say you're building a data center, a small data center on a hill where you don't have a plain land and you might be also shifting on a time to time basis. So you may go for a modular container based data center. So based on the usage also there are different kinds which I will explain in the subsequent slides. Ease of build. So ease of build is also one of type of data center. Like you can build in a customized way, like you build a greenfield data center, purpose-based data center where you acquire land and then plan it, build the building, and then create an entire data center infrastructure. Or you have your own building. In that building, you can create data infrastructure and move in. You can also, there are readily data center available, SMTC, we call it small, medium, modular data centers, which it's like you get all those products together integrated on the site and your data center is ready. There are prefab data centers. So those different kind of data center based on the ease or and how the faster deployment you are looking at. Then size and scale. So also based on the size and scale, there are different kind of data center where we call it captive data center, multi-tenant data center, or co-location data center, cloud data center, edge data centers. So obviously there are different sites and even hyperscale data center for larger one. Similarly, for efficiency environmental, there has been the type of data center, people call it green data center, where a lot of aspects of environmental sustainability are taken care of. Similarly, what is the impact of the data center on the technology and the business? So, based on that, you also select what type of data center is required. Coming back to the data center types, so I have done a lot of thorough study overall and tried to put it on the single slide for more clarity to you. So if you talk about data center, people call it critical facility also, some of the people call it digital infrastructure also. So there are broadly four categories of critical facilities based on applications. The first, data center. So I will talk about what are different categories or different types of data center. Second application is in telco. So telco call it machine switching center, MSCs, or the regional data centers. So this is also critical facility for telcos because if the service is down there, your network connectivity, your voice connectivity gets down and gets impacted. So telco has got hundreds or multiple of such kind of facilities in India scattered across. Also, one of the application is lab. There are critical facilities which been used by the key research organizations in IT. And I listed out Accenture has got their labs, Juniper, Cisco, IBM, Qualcomm, NetApp, CSSIR, HP, and EMC. So they have got dedicated labs. They do a lot of research around a specific product or the development part of it, and it is a critical facility. Similarly, if you talk about CSIR, they have got high performance computing. They do a lot of research around that. So this is one application of the critical facility, which is kind of a data center, and we call it critical facility also. Now, the data center are broadly in four categories. The first, the captive DC, or we call it enterprise DC. So captive DCs are, let us say I'm a data center guru having an organization and I want to have my own data center. I build my own data center, host my all hardwares in that data center and manage it. So there is no third party involvement there in the data center front. So that's called captive data center because I have invested as a capital cost and also bearing the OPEX or operating cost for the data center. So these captive data centers are there across, whether it is ITIS or telcos, government, BFSI, all these people has got their own data centers. Now the second type of data center, we call it multi-tenant data center or co-location data center. So multi-tenant data center, the name state itself, it provide space for multiple organizations to put their hardware. So in their data center, there are multiple companies as services are being managed. So comparatively, the size and the scale of the multi-tenant data centers or co-location data centers are much bigger and somewhat different in design as compared to captive data center. Now coming to hyperscalers. So in the previous slides, I talked about the hyperscalers where they reinvent the wheel and they formed out a very specific design and the specific product which can give them the economy of scale, the efficiency, and the faster deployment and also the reliability. Based on that, they have got selected a very spatial design and very large in size. So hyperscale data center are normally very large in size and it is built by these internet giants. So you can have Amazon or Facebook, Google, all these has got their own data center outside in India. And in India also couple of them has built their own data centers. But now, till now, Amazon has been building their own data center now in Hyderabad. Apart from they using co-location partners for the facility using the multi-tenant data center. And tomorrow they may build their own or they might be still following the multi-tenant data center to build for them and they're deploying hardware there. So this is hyperscaler and the fourth one is the green data centers. So there has been lot of focus on green data center to minimize the impact of carbon footprint which is produced by the data centers on environment. So recently there has been a lot of announcement by these internet giants by 2025, 2030 will be carbon neutral. Our data center would be carbon neutral. So the people are working around it. In India also there has been a lot of initiative around renewable energy. So there has not been solar power plants, wind power plants are being built and it is going to support the data center power requirements. However, the data center, the backup power is always supported by the digital generator set, backup generator set, which has not yet been replaced by any other source of power um, apart from just replacing the fuel of the data centers by some other technology, whether it is a CNG or whether it is a fuels sales, those kind of stuff. But most of the data centers across the globe are using diesel generator set as a backup power. Now coming back in terms of how these modular data centers are classified. So you have got recently we are talking a lot about edge data centers and the demand for edge data centers are going to take up very soon in maybe 2 3 years once 5G rollout happens and AI and IoT adaptations increases fast. So that will for the demand of edge data centers. Edge data centers are the data center, smaller data center near to the end user. So the purpose of putting the edge data center is reduce the latency or enhance the performance or give a better user experience rather than sending all the data to the centralized data center, processed storage and so on and so forth where latencies are involved. Second, we are talking about SMTC, small and medium data centers. So that also a terminology which we used to use earlier for a smaller data center, people used to just get modular data center assembled on the site and ready to go, the faster deployment. This can be used even for the edge data center for faster and quality deployment. And the last is free fab data centers. It is containerized data center and it is modular in nature. So it is portable. So let us say you have got a requirement for data center at some location for 6 months. So the container you can go and put it there, use it for some time. If you want to shift that to somewhere else, similarly plug out your network and power connection and move it and put it somewhere else and plug it and plug in. Similarly, it helps you scaling up very fast. So you have got one container today, you want more, you just keep on adding those number of containers and you can be able to expand. So where you don't have to build a building, this container itself contains a data center itself and it is self-sufficient to provide the conducive environment for the technology equipments. So with this, I'm coming to the end of this session, and as a part of the communication, I would like to share with you what would be the next session and what is the topic of it. So, my fifth session, I would be talking about on data center standards and guidelines. So, what are the different type of standard data center standards which is available? What are the different type of guidelines which is available? And why should we follow data center standards or guideline? And who are following it? So the broader details about it I'll be sharing in my upcoming session on 1st March 2021. So till then, I would like to thank a lot, thank you all for patience and watching this session, and hope this is interesting and you are enjoying it, loving it. And with this, I would like to wish you a great day, great evening, great morning, where is a part of the global phenomena. So, bye bye and take care.